Good, good, af- good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, Retaining Revenue in Today's New Normal. A few housekeeping notes before we jump in. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll send a link to all of the attendees today. This being a webinar, you can hear us, but we cannot hear you. We will be launching poll questions throughout the webinar and a survey at the end. We really appreciate feedback, so please feel free to fill that out. And if you have questions as we go through the webinar, please feel free to put them in the comment box. We'll be answering them if there's time at the end of the webinar. And if we do not have time, we will, of course, follow up with you individually. So my name is Tara Paula. I'm Director of Marketing here at Community Brands. In my role, I focus on building marketing programs to acquire new association customers like yourselves, and also help our clients market to their members to drive revenue for the Career Center business, YN Careers. I'm passionate for all things marketing, digital analytics, thought leadership content, and here with me today, I have my colleague, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today.
So today's webinar is hosted by Community Brands. We're a company that helps forward-thinking associations reinvent themselves to deliver new value in new ways to their members. We offer a flexible stack of technology solutions that you see up there right on the screen that work together to help you create the experiences that drive member loyalty, growth, hopefully exceed the member expectations, and ultimately create revenue streams for your organization. So what are we discussing today? We're going to start talking about the revenue implications that came here in 2020. A lot of them are due to the impacts of canceled in-person events that historically associations have relied on. And we want to really talk about ways in which associations can respond to this and drive additional revenue or develop new revenue streams or expand to really make sure that you're in a good place ending in 2020 and beyond. And then we are going to talk you guys through, different steps that you can take in brainstorming and ideas and really expanding your perspective to maximize other areas of revenue that you can consider through virtual events, sponsorships, continuing education, and Career Center resources. So we are here today because we are all facing this challenge, right, with the current state of association revenue. So non-dues revenue and membership dues are down for the majority of associations. According to the ASAE Research Foundation recent report, only 23% of associations surveyed do not anticipate to use their reserves to offset revenue. And while the remaining associations will need to tap into their reserves to offset the revenue loss. So what does that mean? That means almost 2/3 of associations are reporting a revenue loss significant enough to tap into reserves. So it's been a very historic change and evolution here in the last couple decades. So you see up there on the screen that 96% of total revenue in 1953 came from membership dues. But if you fast forward all the way to today, it's only 30% of total revenue comes from membership dues. So what does this mean? This means that you need a big enough portfolio to make sure that you're getting revenue from all the different areas. It's the easiest thing you can think of is don't put your eggs all in one basket, right? And so what we have found through all of our research and with a lot of ASAE research is that the top 3 sources of, other types of revenue beyond membership dues is events, sponsorships, and exhibitors. So, as I mentioned before, about events being canceled here, this we found interesting as far as ASAE reporting out on really what associations were feeling as far as the return to in-person events. And of course, it goes beyond associations, right? This is kind of, the whole world is watching right now on what's what's happening here with just lots of events in larger gatherings, right? So that big bar that you see on the screen all the way down there is telling us that 39% of associations will not return to in-person events till January 2021 or later. My personal opinion, I would beg to differ that we're in mid to late August, and it might actually be even later than that. So is your association in this number? What is your association supposed to do with replace lost non-dues revenue? And what can you do right now to increase your non-dues revenue, right? That's really what we're here all to discuss. So really our goal today is to have you brainstorm with us, think outside the box, to expand and pivot your offering. So one thing I do want to point out though, is that your members still have the same kinds of needs. And so what's a little different here is how associations can support those needs and monetize those is really what's changed in today's environment. So those associations that can adapt best will be in a better position now and going into next year if you can adapt really quickly. So how do you close the gap for this year and going into next year? Do not do this in a silo. Do not do this just yourself. And what I mean by that is making sure that your market is ready for it. So for an example, you can talk to members. You can send them a survey, asking your online community, pick up the phone and ask them to understand what they need from your association now and what they can expect for the future. Would they attend a hybrid event? Would they attend the virtual event, for example? Would they like a different type of, content piece? Or if you were to expand your continuing education program. So it's something, to be said about understanding your market and your industry and pivoting really fast, but you also have to make sure you have your pulse on whether this will be a good experience, offer value, and of course, the revenue behind it. And you can think of it the same way with sponsors. So what are your sponsors' goals? Have they changed? What opportunities do they find valuable now that we're in a little bit of a different world? Can you partner together with them in a different way? And also think outside your association. Are there new partnerships that you can develop now that you might be looking at different streams of revenue? So it's really just, thinking outside of the box, making sure that there's no kind of like stone unturned because you're living in a different type of world than we all were before, right? So here are the 4 levers we want to discuss with you guys today to help fill in the gap and set you up for success for this year and going forward. So we'll be going through pivoting your in-person events to virtual and the strategy behind that and really the best practices and the way to think about that. Then we're going to talk about sponsorship and tons of different ideas. Katie's going to go over with that to make sure you have a well-rounded program that goes throughout the year. We're going to talk about continuing education and possibly looking at different ways that you can think about this and monetizing and adding value through your learners. And then last but not least, we will talk about how your Career Center can help not only support your members in a very crucial time of need from a career standpoint, but also different levers that could drive new revenue. So we wanted to start here and kind of get a feel for you guys as far as which of the following you would like to either refresh or implement or just kind of, take a look at this year or right now. So we're going to launch this poll and see what you guys all think. Okay, we got some results coming in here. All right. Okay. Well, this is good. As we're seeing the percentages come in, we want to make sure that we are delivering the right content, speaking to what you guys are interested in. So it looks like about 29% of you said that you are looking to kind of take a look at conferences or events. and 22% said webinars, and the 15% learning programs, online meetings, and then we have some others interested in career centers, virtual career centers, and recruitment guides. So that's good. So we just want to make sure that the content we're talking about today is relevant for all of you. And I'm happy to see that the answers are diversified. That's why we're here today, right? To talk about all the different ways that you could go ahead and think through the revenue in 2020. Okay, so we are going to start here with our first lever on virtual events.
Thanks, Tara. So yeah, let's get right into the first strategy to diversify your revenue, and that's through virtual events. We know that taking your in-person event online and providing a virtual experience for your members takes considerable thought and analysis. And remember, a virtual event it's not the same as an in-person event, and it's important to think through the needs of all of your stakeholders, ways to provide a valuable experience for your members, and strategies to drive revenue in a virtual space. We know that in-person events are a major source of revenue for associations, and to offset that revenue loss, you can take your in-person event online. And while pivoting to a virtual event can present challenges for your organization, executing a successful virtual event can lead to member satisfaction and profitability. And in just a minute, we'll talk through virtual events overall and considerations for both sponsorship programs and generating attendee revenue. Before we dive into discussing virtual events, let's first talk about some of the challenges that organizations are facing today executing a profitable virtual event. Things like what type of event to host, how to determine pricing, sourcing a vendor, keeping your attendees engaged, lack of technical knowledge, and maintaining valuable sponsorship programs. These are new challenges that associations are being presented with, and because of this, we are seeing them change the way that they approach virtual events and drive revenue. Virtual events can be just as, if not more profitable than an in-person event and provide a wide variety of benefits. Some of the benefits that you'll see from a virtual event include cost savings and reach and extension. Your stakeholders are logging in from anywhere, so you can have fewer limitations based on location. You can start your event earlier than if you were in person, and you can extend the reach of your content by repurposing it again in different ways after the event. So for example, you could repurpose a session as part of your continuing education program. More benefits include flexibility, engagement, tracking. We know how important data is, and data collected within your virtual event platform, like sessions attended, time spent in sponsor booths, and content downloaded, is valuable information that can be used in multiple ways after your event. And finally, your environmental footprint. With virtual events, there's less travel and less material waste. Now, associations must be thinking about their specific event needs and how to provide the same value to members and sponsors in a virtual space. Remember, your virtual event shouldn't just be an online version of your in-person event. It's important to think about your event strategy and what components you need online that will best help you to accomplish your goals. There are 4 types of virtual events depending on your association's goals and specific needs. There's a web conference, webcasting, virtual event, and a hybrid event. Now, once you've determined what type of virtual event is right for you, how do you execute it successfully? So here we have a sample timeline with some of the key steps of planning a virtual event. 9 to 6 months out, you want to make sure to start to create a plan, select your platform, recruit speakers and sponsors, develop your theme, your graphics, your event website, and start to promote your event to your members. In the last 3 months before your event, you'll need to train your stakeholders on how to use the system and where they can ask questions if they have any, record content and request slide decks, upload content to your event platform, review and test your event platform, and make any final modifications before you go live. As you consider ways to diversify your revenue, think about shifting your in-person event online. Remember that, even though they can present present challenges, virtual events are engaging, and when hosted successfully, they can lead to member satisfaction and profitability.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So hopefully that gives you guys some idea of really how to get started, how to look at benefits of virtual events, determining your needs, and a timeline. So what we wanted to do is kind of engage you guys to see, you know, as some of your peer associations are on this call as well, another poll of, do you have plans right now to host a virtual or hybrid event? And within that time frame, so you guys can see kind of where everybody else is in, right? This has been a huge, huge endeavor, challenge for a lot of associations and our clients that haven't heavily relied on this in the past. So, okay. Interesting. I think it is, I think, what we've been seeing with our prospects and in the market with a lot of technology solutions out there, that there is a lot of, you know, virtual and hybrid events happening or being planned still for the end of 2020. We have about 71% of you that said within the next 3 to 6 months, which makes sense from a historic standpoint as far as kind of fall being a very heavily, you know, kind of scheduled for annual conferences, things like that. But it still looks like some of you are planning out even further than that, which is always great. But hopefully here, as you guys plan and start to look at what you need, you'll be able to kind of brainstorm and really think through everything that undertakes a really successful virtual conference. So, all right. You guys are not alone if you're in the planning mode coming up here. Okay, so one thing that we wanted to talk to you guys about is pricing. So this is something that has come up quite a bit in our space, right? So cost to consider when developing a virtual event here. This is new for a lot of people. So there's a lot of consideration here. So one being, you need to really consider the price to pay speakers. So if you're getting different industry experts or keynote speakers, that definitely needs to be a consideration there. Also thinking through your virtual event management software. So there are, associations understand, and it's been a very fragmented type of market with technology. But when it comes into a play for a virtual event, it's very difficult to manage all the different vendors. You don't know how the integrations work, API, data from all your different sources. So it's really best to make sure you're looking for a vendor that can really do almost everything for you. It'll be easier. And so taking this software price into consideration in everything you're looking for as part of the pricing. And another thing that should be mentioned is making sure you have secure bandwidth and reliability in whatever you're picking for internet and just stability. It sounds like very simple and basic, but this is the most critical part, right? When you're attending anything virtual, if the technology of the platform isn't up to snuff, testing is something that needs to be looked at. If there's pricing involved with that, things like that. So things that you can also consider for pricing is also if there are any type of customized service offerings. Maybe that's for exhibitors, or maybe there's like premium pricing. So you need to understand what that would be if there's other outside types of costs there. So once you kind of brainstorm the different parts to consider for pricing, what you want to do is figure out your digital pricing strategy of online and hybrid events. So you would start with figuring out and benchmarking your that you might historically have, right, from in-person, events that you've held before. The other thing you need to benchmark it against is before, if you are doing hybrid. That's very important. What is the value and what is the experience if somebody is in person or if they're doing the online portion? So you got to start with that benchmark first and foremost. Then you need to work on your break even for your online event, right? Like what are the hard costs? What are absolute must-haves? And then you'll kind of get into that breakdown between on-site and the break even. You know, like is there margin? Is this really something you guys are really trying to generate revenue? Could, you know, sponsorships or exhibitors come into play to help with that break even? All that needs to kind of be put into play. And then the last two, I think, are really, really important is understanding the pricing being either too high or too low. And I know this one is kind of difficult, but, you know, you got to make sure you're not trying to sway people one way or the other if you are, say, doing a hybrid event. It has to match the value that you're offering. So thinking about an example is like maybe adding recordings to the on-site attendance for free, but upcharge it to online attendees. And another last element that I think is really important is the tiered pricing for access to content and connection. It does not have to be one size fits all by any means. And so it's just something to explore, work with your team, and really spend some time here because virtual events and hybrid events, as you guys all know, as professionals, take up a lot of time, and you wouldn't want something like pricing to kind of deter the success of your event. So the different prices, you know, to help with kind of the approach is here are some ideas that you guys can consider, right? So you could do, you know, this is your event ticket for your attendees. So session-based pricing. You know, maybe you allow your attendees to go to their preferred sessions. Don't bundle out the entire event as one price for them, but if you want to, you could go for that too as well. There's a lot here. This is just meant to give you guys some, you know, the groundwork of different brainstorming. And you can do standalone pricing for different categories of attendees that would help you attract, say, maybe new ones. This could be an easy one as far as like, you know, early grad or student or discounts like that. Speaker-based. A really great thing about virtual events is your ticket by the quality and reputation of the speakers, which I've seen before. If it's like keynote in the bigger sessions are part of a ticket, but maybe people don't want that. Maybe they just want to come for the continuing education. So it can be speaker-based. You should also do some research on your competitors, right? And understand what you can increase, decrease, and group discounts, free materials, early bird pricing, kind of the bonuses and the discounts in there as well, can really kind of incentivize to have the different tiered structure, especially when you're considering virtual. Since in theory, people are at home, at a coffee shop or somewhere that they're at, that they might be more available and able to do this versus traveling and all the costs going to an in-person event right now. So that was our virtual event. So we are going to move on to our sponsorship program.
Yes, let's talk about sponsorship programs and ways that they can be leveraged to generate revenue from both your virtual events and year-round programs. So it's important to remember when planning your sponsorship programs what your sponsors are looking to get out of participating. If you can offer creative and engaging opportunities and demonstrate the value in these opportunities, your sponsors and partners are more likely to opt in. And you may only get one shot to get it right, so you don't want to risk turning off sponsors to participating in future events. So how can you leverage your virtual and year-round events to create sponsorship programs that provide value to not only your stakeholders, but also are profitable for your association? Giving sponsors value is a key component to a successful sponsorship program, and it can be executed through advertising, branding, and programming opportunities. You see here, sponsored advertising opportunities can apply to both your virtual event and year-round programs, things like printed programs, sponsored gifts, lobby banners, sponsored social messaging, and customer case studies all provide great exposure for your sponsors. And just like at an in-person event with signage and banners, there's many ways to incorporate your sponsors using branding throughout your virtual event, including sponsored halls, pre-session messaging, branded breakout sessions, branded swag, and sponsored VIP rooms. And finally, programming opportunities. There are many ways to include your sponsors through programs like a scavenger hunt, a virtual mall or store, and matchmaking technology, sponsored meal delivery, entertainment breaks, and even sponsored games. You want to be sure to think through strategies to increase sponsorship ROI when creating your programs. By expanding your sponsorship program to include opportunities like guest blog posts, sponsored email communications, digital event bags, sponsor days, and others that you see listed here, you can offer year-round programs that benefit your sponsors and your association. So now that we've discussed some different opportunities for your sponsorship program, we wanted to show you some examples that we offer that can be implemented for your association. Here we have a screenshot of an exhibit hall within our own virtual event solution. And with this solution, you can host multiple sponsors or exhibitors. Individuals can be custom branded and include links to products, videos, in-booth personnel, and text and video chat. And sponsors can receive data and analytics and customize and personalize each booth to get the most out of their experience. Next, we have digital vendor guides. This is a very interesting product that you can offer during these unusual times. Your exhibitors and sponsors count on your meetings for critical exposure to your members. And this is where the digital vendor guide comes in. This is an ebook, or even a flip book, if you will. It's a booklet of the primary vendors in your space that's shared directly with all of your members. Unlike a vendor directory on your website, it actively delivers the vendors and sponsors you serve to the inboxes of your members in an easy-to-use format. Not only is this a great opportunity for your sponsors, but members also find these types of resources useful. When they need a product or a service, instead of a cluttered Google search, they can simply refer to this directory of service providers. And finally, we have the online learning program. Sponsorships aren't just for your annual conference. You can also incorporate them into your online learning program, and they can be a great source of revenue as well. We have two ways to incorporate sponsorships into your online educational program. First, offer event sponsorships. And you sell these for your annual conference, so why not do it for online? And for example, you can sell sponsorship space and in a slide deck for a one-off webinar, or you can collaborate with a corporation to trade sponsorships for access to guest speakers. And offering course sponsorships. Along the same lines of collaborating with a corporation for your virtual event, you can find a sponsor for a full online course, series of courses, or courses on a particular topic. One approach could be that you work with subject matter experts in your industry to create course content. You can then offer it to their colleagues for free in exchange for the subject matter expert's time, while charging the rest of your learners to access it to drive revenue.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Okay, so we are moving right along here. We are going to talk about the third lever today, which is continuing education. So we just spoke about, incorporating sponsorships to your online program, but as a matter of fact, according to the Community Brands Member and Education Career Development Report, 85% of members want organizations to provide continuing education opportunities. So this can closely align with your revenue retention and revenue generation goals. And this, we know for a fact, is one of the main reasons that members view your association as providing excellent benefits to them. And they, a lot of them will join your association just for the fact of, obviously, certification, credentials, training opportunities. You are the entity and the body that they think of for their, their career growth and development. So that is an amazing opportunity for you as an association to have. And so, yes, it's member value, and it provides a lot to your learners, but there's always an element of revenue that we'll get into. So, if you haven't really explored a lot for your learning management systems, or you're just looking, like we talked about, to kind of like evaluate, expand, one thing you could start with is to replicate kind of that traditional place-based continuing education in an e-learning environment. So, maybe it's a webinar or a webcast is an ideal solution for maybe meetings or small conferences, which you were planning on this year. And so it's easy to set one up. Your presenters can broadcast their lectures and upload, all of their content right there, and have like a webcam, and you can have thousands of learners at the same time submitting for credit right during that, the webinar or webcast. So you can easily make that switch, right, from on-site to online. So this allows you to deliver interactive, kind of impactful webinars, on-demand courses as part of a comprehensive continuing education program. So this is definitely something you want to consider if you don't have today. You can also reduce staff time on labor-intensive administrative tasks. So you can manage online courses and data really from start to finish if you have the right technology in place. And as far as providing member value, you're really helping your members' career growth there and their, always their lifelong learning, as we say. So you can drive, massive traffic to your website, convert those visitors to members, and you're really helping them with their next great career opportunity. But I know today we are focusing right on revenue, right? So your ability to drive revenue from your online learning program really depends largely on your ability to create great content. So after all, that is what your learning program is selling, right? Content. So as you create a content strategy for your online education program, make sure it's optimized for revenue generation. So here are 5 ways that you can kind of look at that as an approach. One, of course, is providing that meaningful, diversified, relevant content. So one way that you could do this is making sure that your content has a good range. So possibly maybe free to the public, and that hopefully is minimal effort on your end, all the way to high value, higher price, premium, kind of member-only options. So reevaluating your course content is a great idea to think about here. Another thing that you can do to optimize is figure out really what those timely topics are. I think, this has been said for years, right? But I think a lot of industries are in a very different world, right? They're pivoting left and right. There's, a lot of things happening. So, focusing on those hot topic, timely, program can really meet your learners' just-in-time needs. And this can be seen as tremendous value that you're offering back to your industry. The third one here is breakout content. So make sure that you are having your content kind of displayed and, in a way that you're breaking up longer courses, so smaller, easier, kind of consumable chunks of content, if you will, to ensure you have your learners' attention. So maybe it was a course that was 3 hours long or something like that, and now it's 3 different. It's part 1, part 2, and part 3 over 3 different hours versus people sitting there. And you might see that just by testing that and just by trying that, it could end up increasing people taking it, coming back, actually finishing the course, things like that. And then the fourth one here is bundles. So this is a good way to make it as easy as possible for your learners and to increase really the amount of courses, or just don't make it difficult on them, right? So we know that, in your industries, you have certain, maybe hours for your professionals to maintain their licenses or certifications. And so offer, different bundles when they can pick and choose when to take them based upon industry standards, or they could maybe create their own bundle. And then last but not least here, we talk about this a lot in the association space, is getting personalization. So you should be able to, with your technology, integrate some of the data that you have in other systems, or at least use it as a roadmap. Everyone's in a different place. Sometimes you have to start manually here and then work towards, integration and technology across email marketing, online community, maybe your AMS, and really to segment learners based upon what you know of their interests, maybe preferred medium, maybe their career stage, things like that. And so that's 5 ways that you can really try to look at the content to, make sure that you're, have that average, course or recommendation to the highest for revenue. So not only you need to do that, you can spend tons of time creating great content for your members. Obviously, that's super important. But if they don't see the value in your content provides, they're not going to buy it, right? So here's 3 ways you can kind of demonstrate that value and drive more revenue. So articulating the value, of course, I'm a director of marketing. I think this is extremely important. But really the marketing of the descriptions, or maybe it's brief videos, to clearly explain what this is and how it can help them. You can talk about, the different credits that they earn, or badges, or, calling out different topics or speakers. Another way to do this is also to, offer more than a course catalog. Really build a knowledge community. So your online learning should really be a full-blown knowledge community that supports, and integrates live and on-demand content in many, many forms. So that can incorporate social learning, peer-to-peer exchanges, and have them be this little community based upon a lot of the knowledge and information, so they really feel like they're in it with other professionals. And last but not least here is integrating your online, learning with other organizational programs, right? Maybe it's part of a membership renewal, or, a part of the conference. Maybe it's something that you can encourage maybe new members or a lapsed member or something like that, so they understand all of the great value that you have in the content, and having them coming back to continuously take all the learning from your association. Okay, so online content programs are very relevant to your revenue retention strategy, because that's one of the main reasons your members are joining. And you can see all this data right up on the screen here. So members are really largely joining, as you can see here, to stay competitive in the job market, required to keep on a license. They want a new skill. They want to be more confident. They want to stay up to date. And so this is really a huge revenue retention strategy on your end if you can articulate it and have the content and market it correctly. So this is an excellent segue to talk about how career centers can also generate revenue for you and help your members with their career growth. Okay, so as far as career centers in general, as kind of the value that you guys are offering, it's the number one reason members join for career opportunities. And it also still drives membership, right? We talked about that at the beginning, that membership obviously, as far as revenue, has declined, but that's still why your members are joining. So you can't, it's one of those, you still have to acquire and retain members, right? But we know that those dues alone aren't going to carry you guys into your revenue goals or growth, right? But really what I want you to focus on the screen here is the opportunity that we have. So 76% of members join an organization in school or within their first 5 years of employment. So this is you guys attracting new members, right? This is part of why they actually join your association. But then if you look at on the bottom of the screen, their retention, 28% of members say the organization is doing well. So we need to increase that, right? We want your members to say that you are doing exceptional. We want 28% to be a lot higher in supporting their career advancement. So they're not seeing the connection. So what you need to do really is to become more than a job board. You need to be a true career destination, providing world-class experiences. We want your members to think of you as the go-to place for career resources, special member access for, say, seeing jobs first, applying for a job, looking at content or articles or videos that's directly related to their profession. This is obviously a member acquisition and retention, kind of tool. That's the way you should be looking at your association career center for sure. But finally, it should be a part of your revenue portfolio. So how does this work for the career center? you have the great opportunity to connect your members who are highly qualified and talented in your industry to employers who desperately want to hire them. And the good news for you is they will pay premium dollars to do this. So on your career center, you should, of course, have a full suite of products that's beyond the traditional job postings. So yes, you need job postings, of course, but you also need packages. You need credits. You need banner ads, retargeting, dedicated emails to help employers promote their jobs to your members, social media feeds. This is how the recruitment world works today. And so associations need to offer this breadth of different products to employers. It's expected by recruiters, and honestly, it helps you increase your average sales price, which will help increase the revenue of your career center overall. But one thing I really wanted to kind of talk to you guys about today is we need to think beyond job posting packages, banner ads, everything that you would buy e-commerce or through a recruitment ad specialist or the products itself. So within your career center, you can diversify that revenue itself too, to go beyond that. So one element and one area to think about is a virtual career fair. So a virtual career fair connects your talented members with employers in the comfort of their home, office, or coffee shop. So the way the virtual event platforms work is they provide a highly rated experience for attendees. So during the event, employers do live screening of dozens or hundreds of candidates, and then candidates get to chat with employers in just a couple hours. So what this does for your association, it helps extend the reach, right? It reaches your members who maybe can't go to on-site, meetings or job fairs or anything like that, which is the reality of today. It helps engage more members. Your content can be accessible for longer, even if your event is done. Your sponsors like that, your exhibitors, and that's where you get into revenue. So you can provide the service to your members, but it also helps you create another revenue stream that maybe you didn't have before. So employers will, pay for booths, they'll set up the booths, and it all can be turnkey for your association. And at the same time, you're also offering such a great opportunity for your members. So a quick little success story here we have for a virtual event is the Society of Women Engineers hosted their largest and most successful virtual event here in April. And they had over 30 exhibitors, 500 plus attendees of their members, and almost 2,000 chats. And so this is something that's been around for years, but I think it's a great opportunity, and we're seeing more and more of these, of really kind of connecting the dots, having meaningful connections with members, with the chat features, and as you can see with the attendee quotes there, that it went over very, very well. And at the end of the day, the employers are very happy to get their brand and their recruiters in front of, in this case, professional engineers that they were able to chat with. So another good lever within the Career Center business. And so the last one that I wanted to talk to you guys about is recruitment guides. So this is actually very similar to what Katie was talking about with the digital vendor guides. And the digital vendor guides have more of like your exhibitors or maybe larger corporations or industry there. So the recruitment guide is all about, top industry employers. And what they're willing to do is get their pay, out of their recruitment dollar budget, advertisements that they want in front of your members, right? There's a lot of branding. It's a great opportunity for them for employer branding. And this has seemed to be really valuable for members. So as an association, you can put in your own articles, in your own resources to really help them. You could possibly advertise your learning management, your continuing education programs or other areas that you guys are focusing on in the association. It's in a digital format. It can be printed. We've been doing a lot more digital, of course, lately. You can embed videos and then email these out, provide them back to your members, and they see it really as, oh, wow, these are featured employers that are looking to hire people in my industry. And so it's very valuable for your members. And the key for all of you guys is it's a new revenue stream, and it's absolutely turnkey, no additional work on your end. Okay, so that was a lot. We threw a lot at you guys today. And so really now it's time to brainstorm back with your team and plow through to carve out a strategy here, expanding or enhancing some of the ones we went over today. So a quick little recap here. I want you guys to remember that members still have the same types of needs, right? And it's really more about how your association can still support those, but figure out how to monetize in today's new environment. And the faster you can adapt, test, try, think of new things to offer that include member value, right, and benefits, but also new sources of revenue is going to set you up for success for the end of this year and going into next year. We went over the foundations of a virtual event strategy. Katie laid this out on really figuring out what your goal, what you need, everything you need to think that through for virtual, hybrid, everything in between, right? Sponsorship programs, there's a lot there. I think, in my opinion, you can always reevaluate it, refresh it, just take a look at it. Maybe there's more opportunity there. Maybe there's opportunity to just expand, or maybe there's opportunity to, try a webinar series. There's a lot there that you can do throughout the year. If you've historically just, counted on sponsorships for in-person or mostly events, which is, we see a lot according to all our studies, but, it's a different world now, and maybe those sponsors that you guys work with today are open to new opportunities. So make sure you are talking with them too. And then we moved on and we talked about your continuing education. This is something that you can always look to, strategize your content, the different ways that you, lay out your content, market your content, making sure that that content is driving learners to come back. In different ways, you can also incorporate sponsors in this as well. And then last but not least, we talked about career centers and the full breadth of products that you should have on your career center for employers who have recruitment dollars and budgets, which, by the way, is starting to trend back up in this very interesting unemployment market, right? But we are seeing signs of recovery for that. And then thinking beyond the career center of other opportunities is a key point today. So we threw a lot at you guys, but I do want to mention that we will definitely be sending out the recording. We said that in the beginning in case you missed it. And then the other great thing is, since we found a lot of this content, a lot of ideas, a lot of different things to think through, we are developing a white paper that we will be sending out to you guys as well, because I know it's a lot to digest, and I'm sure a lot of you want to go back to your teams and kind of brainstorm and think it through and get some more information to pull out a strategy. So that brings us to Q&A. I'm just going to quickly look at our questions here that came in. Okay. We had a question come in here saying, what kind of success rate have you seen with clients who have used the virtual career fair feature? That's a great question. So part of that, it's different for each industry, honestly, what we define as success. But we work with each client to really figure out what's the goal. Well, there's usually a revenue goal, right? We work with you on pricing for booths for the employers and recruiters, and we usually go by that. It's like, okay, do we believe it's like 20, 30, 50 booths, things like that. We have historic knowledge of different industries that we rely on internally and externally. And then we typically see about, it's been increasing this year for virtual career fairs, honestly. For attendance rate as far as members, it was usually about 60%. But as you can imagine, with the state of unemployment and really just virtual events in general taking off, it's been a lot higher. And we've seen a ton of great feedback from members that are just interested, and employers. People are just happy to connect, knowing that there's not as much, out there that they historically relied on. Although that was a lengthy answer to your question about success rates, but we rarely have found ones that we didn't have a good amount of employers interested and attendees. And we've also seen a lot of associations do kind of niche career fairs, if you will. Maybe they're geared towards students, or maybe they are, maybe a family physician, or like a doctorate, or, a certain type of professional within your association. So it really varies there. So what else do we have? We had a question here about pros and cons of chats during an online session. I've seen some chats are completely off topic. Oh, okay. So I think this question is really aiming at, what we see as far as chat, when you're holding maybe like a virtual, webinar or session or things like that. So from our perspective, again, it depends on the industry and the association and really your goals. Sometimes it depends on the speaker as well, as if they want to have a Q&A or a live session, kind of like with panels and chats. And really, I think it goes back to your goals as far as an online chat. Do you want attendees chatting with each other or not? Do you want them focused on really the content at hand? So there's tons of different options that you can find within your technology provider. And honestly, my biggest thing would tell you is to test. Maybe try certain, continuing education, courses if they're live, or if it's in a live event, is to try some with chat and try some without, and like really gauge the audience. It's really the only way to figure that out if you've never done something like that before. Of course, you can look at peer organizations that go by your vendor, but it's really a personal decision there. Okay. We got one more here I think we'll go over. We've been using Microsoft Teams for virtual meetings. Has this been a successful platform to use medium-sized groups? So I do know that at Community Brands, we have, several types of options for any type of, virtual meetings, webinars. It really depends on the features and functionalities that you're looking for. The good thing is we always want, our clients to really look at what matters to them and what the goal is and what your features and functionalities. We have everything from super, super robust, multi-day conferences and meetings that we host, all the way to, just a lot of the live webinars or webcasts. And the good news too with that is obviously the pricing models are different. They can be different based upon, whether it's attendees or learners. We're never really trying to get a client into one or the other, because we want you guys to meet your revenue goals, have the good, experience that you want to offer to your members as well. All right. Well, I think I saved you guys a couple minutes of your day. I know we went over a lot, but I really do want to thank you guys for taking your time out of this very busy season here. Summer going into fall. There's a lot going on in everyone's world in the association space, and we're thrilled that you joined us today. But look out for our recording, and as soon as we have that white paper in the coming weeks, we will make sure you guys all get a copy. So thank you so much for joining.